the 22nd of July, 2024. And shockingly enough, I did share this on X and on Instagram yesterday, but I was right about my predictions about on or around the 20th of July of this year that Joe Biden would step down. I said I didn't know how or why, but he would step down, and that Kamala Harris would possibly take over being the first female president. I made my predictions based on a multitude of different reasons, trends, things that I was tracking, like similarities and parallels to presidents of the past and predictions that were made, including like in the Woodrow Wilson, Herbert Hoover presidential election predictions, that the first female president would not be someone that was voted in. The first female president would be someone who stepped in after a president stepped down. And so anyway, I want to share my predictions instead of just talking about it, because I think that adds to more credence to it. So this was January 1st. Okay, I had said this before, but I don't even remember what I said exactly in this video. Again, nothing is scripted. And because this is also something that's been prophetic, just back it up. Hopefully it doesn't create any issues for this year. I'll back it up even more just to show you, look at the date. And so I ask, because I know this stuff, because I am an expert, 201st day of the year. That's all I searched because I already knew it. July 20th is the 201st day of the year. It's the 202nd day in leap years. This is a leap year this year. So on July 19th, technically would be the 201st day of this year. So on July 19th could possibly be the day. And again, 2024, I just remembered it's a leap year. So like this technically is not the 201st day of this year or a leap year because I'm a fucking expert. You're welcome. But July 19th would be the 201st day of the year for this year. Doesn't matter. And this could be when Biden gets fired finally or removes himself from presidency and Kamala Harris takes over, because this is also something that's been prophetic. And so let me just January 1st, and I said it before that as well. I'm watching this still, but let me just do this live. I had the date, like he announced it on the 21st of July, but this was something that was in play, obviously. And I do believe that the Trump assassination attempt, I believe that this is something that was staged and planned as well. I've made videos on that. I know it's a bold statement, but anyway, I do have compelling evidence to suggest that. And yeah, so Biden making his announcement on the 21st, the whole Kamala Harris thing, I'll further get into it. But again, this is something that I said in January and even before that. And so I'm getting haters on my social media because of me saying that, but it is what it is. Okay, so October 20th is her birth date. Oh, and I was sloppy because actually at the start of this video, I don't want to backtrack it, but I was talking about the full moons and the new moons. I talked about the total eclipse in North America, like on April 8th. I talked about this in this video. So if you want to look at my January 1st video, you can. I discussed all that. But then I stopped in March for the full moon, new moon. And so if I would have furthered on during that video, because again, it was a bit sloppy, I would have looked at the full moon being in Capricorn on the 21st of this month. And I would have said, because I even said that they usually follow like new moon and full moon periods before they make announcements, major announcements, not major events, but major announcements. And so I would have been, you know what, but I would predict the 21st of July because of the full moon being in Capricorn. But hindsight 2020, it was a little sloppy on my part. And so next time I make predictions like this, like I'm gonna have to fact. I usually do, which is so annoying, but I didn't in this case. But I did in anyway. But yeah. No one's perfect. This was January, and again, saying this before, it's not a brag at all. I just get excited about this stuff because, like it's just, it was so random, and not something that I ever, expected to actually come to fruition. So it's just, I don't know. Okay, so Woodrow Hoover, and I talk about Hoover. Yeah, even then. Oh, death there. Could be Hoover. I'm trying to remember. Oh, Wilson. Did I already check Wilson? I don't know. I'll get there. Oh, I'm trying to friggin' remember the date of the guy that's friggin'. I'll get to it. It'll come to me. Anyways, I'm gonna keep on with the video, and then I'm gonna go back to this because Kamala Harris was born on the same date that a president of the United States when he died, and he's the one that predicted that the first female president would come after a male president either stepped down or was fired from his it was Hoover presidency. Herbert Hoover. He died the same day and year that Kamala Harris was born. And so it's just interesting the parallels and the connections that people would make. She was possibly even selected because of that birthday. And then you never know. Keep on with the video. But it was Herbert Hoover. Get the freaking date building because I've already verified this before in other videos, which is and in his building, the Herbert Hoover building, the predictions were made that the first female president would be from a the first female president would be from a president, male president stepping down. Frustrating because anyone watching this is be like, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about. But I'm like, look at my other videos. I've shared this.
Farther, you can't see it. Okay, but this is just a terrestrial, and I'll call this light a terrestrial light because it's.
I just want to make sure I get back to it. I don't remember if I do or not.
Is going beyond it and disappear.
Sorry, Dave. I haven't even watched this.
Here's how these students.
I didn't even watch this, and I fucking called it.
Farther, you can't see it. Okay. Or, when you look, let's say you look up. Let's say I meets the land. City skyline. Plane.
I haven't even watched this.
Here's how these students.
I didn't even.
History with students from across Iowa. The visit was part of a conference on the role of former presidents in American society, sponsored by the Herbert Hoover Library and Museum and the Gerald Ford Library.
I haven't even watched. I don't want to be annoying. I'm just going to back up a little more. What we know about the past. The Hoover Institute. I've been going so much off of flat Earth, simulation Earth, electromagnetic fields, the reality of the world, all of this stuff, and so I just got to get more focused. That's what it was. And so he made this prediction in the Hoover Institute. Very freaking interesting. And Hoover died on the ssame day and same year that Kamala Harris was born. So this is not a coincidence. They're doing this to exploit our what we know about the past. No, it's not going to load. I'm sorry. Yella. Oh no, it's not even showing. So it's not showing in here. So I have to go back. Let's see. Okay, so. In 1989,
on October 18th,
and 189 is a big friggin' number in my gematria world as well, which is why my Rumble channel is Dawn 189.
1989, in West Bend, Iowa, Gerald Ford, the 38th President of the United States, shared history with students from across Iowa. The visit was part of a conference on the role of former presidents in American society, sponsored by the Herbert Hoover Library and Museum and the Gerald Ford Library.
I haven't even watched this.
Here's how these students.
I didn't even watch this, and I fucking called it. Okay, so I can be a little annoying with coming across as cocky and braggy. I really hate that about myself because I don't mean to be, but it comes across. So I gotta stop. I'm a genius. I need to stop.
Thank you very, very much. It's a very high honor and a very great privilege for me to come to West Branch and to participate in this conference, which is being held here at the Hoover facilities.
Mr. Ford, what advice would you give a young lady wanting to become President of the United States?
Well, I hope we do have a young lady at some point become President of the United States. I can tell you how I think it will happen, because it won't happen in the normal course of events. Either the Republican or Democrat political party will nominate a man for president and a woman for vice president.
Yep.
And the woman and man will win. So you end up with a president, a male, and a vice president, a female. And in that term of office of the president will die.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
the woman will become president under the law.
Okay, so he
or
said,
Constitution. And once that vice president, a female, and in that term of office of the president will die.
okay, so he was a little bit off. Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
the woman will become president under the law or Constitution. And once that barrier is
Not my
broken,
prediction. I did know that he did say die, but like, and I mean, Biden's old. He's in his 80s, and so it could be a heart attack. I mean, he's boosted, you know. And you know, I'm on YouTube, so I forgot that. So boosters are very healthy for you, and yeah, they're safe and effective.
from then on, men better be careful because they'll have a hard time ever even getting a nomination in the future.
Good question. Technically, Biden gave a 6 months notice till he steps down. You are absolutely right. And this is where it's at right now. He says that he's looking at focusing on this term, but not looking at running in the next term. And then so in his letter, he did mention that as well. He did not support Kamala Harris for president in the letter, but he did on X afterwards. And so I'll share that as well. I do think that he's going to step down during this term. I believe that it's going to be relatively soon that Kamala Harris will fill that check in the box of being the first female president in the history of the U.S. of America during this cycle of life. Anyway, and I don't know how it there's going to be some kind of a carrot at the end of the stick for her. But again, being president and not doing a full term for her, that likely would be appealing. She's not great at her job anyways. And so for her to get the title and not have to do anything with it or actually do any work, what better offer can you get than that, right? And your name is in history for however long we have recorded history. And I do think that she's not popular enough in the Democratic Party, in the polls. And so with her on the ticket, it's absolutely not going to be something that is going to help the Democratic Party. And but they're trying to manage chaos right now. Like they can see the writing on the wall for this election that likely Trump is going to win, right? Like just based off of polling alone, it looks like it's going to be, it's going to be Trump or the Republicans in any means. But sorry, in any case is what I meant to say. And I've also said that it's also not good for Americans or Canadians and or the world, in my humble opinion, just because of the connections also, and JD Vance's connections too with Peter Thiel and Palantir and Palantir Gotham and the international stuff that he's been doing. That it's like the biometrics, the human data mining and things like that, and working with the CIA and other organizations that have also been known to propagate propaganda and psyops, even in Hollywood and video games and movies and there's anyways the military contractors. And if things weren't so fucked up right now, it would be fine. But we can't really trust people to do the right thing and hold people accountable when they should be, because again, people that are working in Senate, in cabinet, in the legal institutions and in Hollywood and stuff like that are somehow still not in jail. It just blows my friggin' mind, right? And we still don't have the list out. But anyways, I'm going on these tangents. I think that Kamala Harris, like the only thing they could do to possibly gain some kind of traction or to make this more of a friggin' circus is to put someone like either my list would be they had Hillary slated to possibly take over, Michelle Obama / Michael Obama. Gavin Newsom was on the list, but he's out now. Like, there's no way. And then even Oprah as a wild card. could possibly be on the ticket. And so with me, if Kamala Harris, the only way that could happen, the only way that someone could, that's not on the list right now for the Democratic Party to be the possible president, is if Biden stepped down this term soon. I think in the month of August, he would step down. Kamala Harris would replace him, and then she would eventually select her vice president. And that's something that would likely happen shortly after becoming president. It wouldn't be something that would just naturally. I mean, she would have someone take over. The Secretary of Defense or whatever would take over to be the interim vice president until she selected someone. And that's that point there is like, who would she select to be her vice president? And that would be the person possibly to take over and be slated as the next president. I know this all makes like no sense to people. And again, this is just a theory. And but it's the only possible way that the Democratic Party could possibly get any chance at winning. And none of these people are great for America or NATO either, right? Neither of them. And so deeply involved in the oil monopoly, deeply involved in human trafficking, drug trafficking, and exploitation of humans, and so not any of those people are good picks in my humble opinion. Very connected, even with people that have been very connected to people that have even been convicted of human trafficking and child pornography and pedophilia, and then even issues with people's schools and charities that they've created in other countries. Anyway, there's so much I can talk about, but that's how I think it might spin, right? If Biden, for whatever reason, stepped down completely during this term, knowing the writing on the wall, the only chance for the Democratic Party would be to do that, to get someone in on that ticket that might be more popular than Kamala Harris, because again, she's a disaster. And in November is right. It doesn't really matter, because it looks like the writing's on the wall. People want Trump to be ushered in as this. There's so many angles that are being exploited right now. There's prophetic angles, like in various religions, that are looking at him like either, like a martyr or a prophet, or even the Antichrist. And so even like the religious aspect is there, and that can be very dangerous. And then even with his connections with the deep state, right? And this is for decades. And it is what it is. And 18th of July, it's just very suspicious. There's so many things that are very suspicious. And anyway, more things coming forward. I'll just keep on with this video so it's not too long.
But that's the way it's going to happen. And
Kamala Harris is an idiot.
It'll probably come sometime in the next 4 or 8 years.
So he was wrong about that. So 4 or 8 years, very wrong. And but he did predict it nonetheless, and it was at the Hoover Institute, or whatever you want to call it. And the lighting is so terrible right now. I'm so sorry about that. So sorry about the lighting. Yellow. So anyway, those were my predictions about Kamala Harris and the approximate date that would happen. And I think in August, just to give time, because people can vote in the states as early as September. I think like the early voting, and so it would have to obviously be before then. And so in August, could it be the new moon period? Could it be the full moon period? I don't know, but it's going to have to be soon. There's going to have to be some kind of an announcement of her taking over, some kind of a ceremony, and then shortly thereafter would be whoever she's going to select, possibly for her vice president. And it could be an interesting theory that I came up like people were saying, well, how could the Democrats, possibly have a chance? And I said, well, RFK Jr., or however you want to call him, he was a Democrat for many, many years. So was his father. And was his father anyway, he left and became an independent. And he's been getting a lot of popularity in the last few years. And 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 again, he does poll better than Kamala Harris in the in America, obviously for many reasons. And so he was given a carrot, or he was incentivized to work with Trump because he had made a call to him shortly after the alleged assassination attempt, and talking about him being on the COVID vaccine research team and other things. And so that is a good incentive for him to remain and or work with the Republicans. However, if the Democrats gave him the opportunity to be a possible vice president, I'm wondering if he would take that, right? Because he's someone that's very much of service to his country. It's something that, could possibly it would definitely be a promotion for him, right? And being of service is something that he would refuse because of a little bit of bitterness within the party, right? I don't know. But I think it might be their only possible hope, right? Would be not possible hope. They just didn't plan this well at all. And I think that's by design as well. I've said that this was going to be a deliberate phase out and that they would be intentionally doing stupid things in order to make people want people like Trump to be ushered in, like anything else but this guy, right? Anything else but this party, like we need right now, right? It would be like almost a desperate plea to get someone else in just because of how friggin' messed up things eventually would get. And so I said the only way there would not be an election because of desperation of the Democratic Party, knowing the writing on the wall, would be some kind of a war or like some kind of an event that was significant enough where it would be distracting enough to not have elections. Who knows? All just theories. And so I was asked during the VIP guest, podcast on Jared. I was asked about a model of the Earth that, like a 3-dimensional model of the Earth that I think best represents what this cosmos is. And it was Savan Bomar is the name, and I found that. It took me a little while, and but I did find the video, and so I do want to share just a little bit of it. And again, I'm not saying that this is exact at all by any means. I'm just saying he gives a really good explanation of this Earth plane and his connections with ancient cultures and civilizations and religions and astrotheosophy and then like this being an electromagnetic reality and being projected on a flat plane of inertia. Visually it's good, but I'm not saying that this is exactly it. Just to be clear, I do think that this is some kind of a motion picture, whatever you want to call it, that's being perception is reality that's being projected, and using light, the full spectrum of light, and then electricity and magnetism being the forces that generate this cosmos, and we're living in the state or the area of equilibrium when we're talking about temperature, pressure, and density. But I do believe that the further out you go, based on the forces, I believe that it's more magnetized or more magnetic and less of an electrical charge the further out we go, and then the further in we go or down, like I'm talking about with water, the more electric. And then there's so I talk about protons and electrons and neutrons and ionization and photons in the video yesterday, especially, but I've been doing a lot more research onto it, and I want to get into that as well because there's just a lot more groundbreaking information and theories that I'm coming up with, or theories that are reinforcing my ideas of this reality. I do want to talk about that as well because it's getting really interesting.
Also interesting.
Oh. And I had shared this before this as well, but
Something that I have shared before.
it's in another video. And so this one was from last year that I shared this, but I do have another extended one. And I think Dave Murphy's talking in that one as well. It's such a freaking great video.
But I will probably share this several more times.
Yeah.
Like this section of this video from Understanding, and I highly recommend taking a look at this channel as well. But this I believe to be a really good explanation of like how we see and perceive and experience our physical reality on this flat plane of inertia, despite the fact that this again is a light and motion electrical magnetic reality that's being perceived via our minds. Our mind is like the connections between the soul or the spirit and this earth plane with like the physical body.
A mantle, an inner core, and an outer core, right? But they tell us that this is on a spinning ball. I'm saying that it is not. what they're actually trying to tell us is that these are the 4 layers in the Ben. This is the cross section, by the way.
Oh no.
Okay, and I'll show you what it is a cross section of. The crust, the mantle, the inner core, and the outer core inside the earth, which is basically this. This is the Ben. This is the earth. Now this is the top half. So if you imagine this at the top, there's also a bottom bit, an upside down pyramid. Okay, and that is sitting on the great deep.
So like the diagram itself, like I'm like not really, but like his explanation of like the as above, so below aspect and the electromagnetic
waters
stuff.
below. And above,
Absolutely.
you've got the waters above, which are the atmospheres.
But I do agree that this is better than what's out there regarding like the like for example Antarctica or this ice wall. I do think that there's possibly openings within that, and there's possibly lands beyond that, because there is archived data that would suggest that, and there's even books that were created to kind of get us on that track, right? To look further into it, like the Iron Republic and or the Iron Curtain and Smoky, the Smoky God.
Right? So when they tell us that the earth has got 3 layers, a crust, a mantle, an inner core, and an outer core, that is inner earth, inside this Ben. The layer between the 2 pyramids. So
There's also again like shoal or shale, whatever you want to call it. Like again, like he's just giving the diagram like from a top-down view. So just to be clear, like top-down view.
there's some truth in that. Okay?
And I'm not saying that this is it. I'm saying this is the closest that you're going to get to the explanation of it.
So I found that really, really interesting when I came across that. Okay?
I mean,
The ancient cultures also talk about these this Ben in quite a lot of detail. Okay? The Egyptians called it Geb, Mother Geb. The Indo-Vedics, the Bu Loka, which is the lands. In Greek, it was Mother Gaia. And in Norse mythology, it was Midgard. Okay? The top of this also had names. Okay? So the whole thing has got a name. In Kemetic Egypt, it's the Ben, right? But on the top, this is Mother Geb. If you're looking from the top, this was Mother Geb. Okay? In Greek mythology, the whole thing is Gaia. But the top, as you see to these concentric rings, is Atlantis or Atlas. Okay? In Norse mythology, they just call it all Midgard. Okay? They had one name for it. In Vedic cosmology or in Vedic scripts, they call the whole thing the Burloka. But the top is the Bu Mandala. The concentric rings are the Bu Mandala. Okay? It's also interesting that in Greek mythology, they said that Mother Gaia had 2 children. Okay? This is Mother Gaia, the whole thing, had 2 children. Who are the 2 children? The 2 children are the top part and the bottom part. Prometheus and Epimetheus. These are the 2 held below us. Okay? Right? I hope that makes sense. So I'll move on to the next slide. Right. Now that we established that this is what the whole Earth looks like, our entire Earth is a pyramid mandala with 4 concentric rings. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Everything is in 4s in the universe.
I don't subscribe to that either. So for the these concentric rings or these rings that the sun travels, for example, that creates like the spiral or the funnel or whatever you want to call it. I do believe that that's how it travels through the Tropic of Cancer, through the equatorial ring, and then outward towards the Tropic of Capricorn until it gets to 23.4 degrees north or south latitude. It doesn't go beyond that, and then within its spiral movement, and then it does average out its speeds, and so the further away it is, and in the longer ring, it does travel faster to get us with that approximate 24-hour clock, and it does move slower in the Tropic of Cancer, where it needs to slow down again to average out that speed.
Right? All creation is in 4s in the universe. Right? At the center, we've got what we now know as the Garden of Eden. So anyone who's been following our videos will know about this. The Garden of Eden's at the center. This is where we are. Here, the second ring. There's an outer ring and an outer ring outside that, all separated by these mountains, what we call the Antarctica ice wall. Okay, this is our South Pole, the Antarctica. And the North Pole, there is a mountain.
So these outer things, like I would call like outer fields, outer fields, like electromagnetic fields or magnetic fields, toroidal fields. And
mountain range separating us from the worlds at the center, from Eden, from Shambhala.
And there are access routes out. And there's stories that I've shared as well, like from books, like archived books, like the Smoky Mountain God or whatever, and other books where people have like possibly escaped out. These are accounts from like Norway and other Scandinavian countries close to the north, and people that tried to circumnavigate this ring and get out, and found people from like other humans, and possibly larger than us, and had more gold and more health and
Hyperborea, okay? And outside they've got their own wall separating from this. This last one has got the greatest one. It's called the Loka Loka Mountains in Vedic scriptures. These are the Loka Mountains.
Yeah, so the people that are trying to kill us, to depopulate us and all this other stuff, there's no requirement for us, because there have been times throughout history where we've even had like 100 billion people on the earth. And so look that up. I've also shared that information as well. And so you can even fit like the entire population right now, and I think it's significantly less than 8 billion. I've done the calculations for over 300 countries with like the most population, and I tallied that up, and it came out to 1.83 billion. And so how the fuck is it possible, like where, like to get like another like more than 6 billion people from the remaining countries that again with a very very poor, like low population in comparison to the top 300, including like China and India and Russia and things like that. And so like and so even with 8 million people, they could fit with basically on the in the state of Texas or California, and comfortably. And so there are people that are literally, again, like they're lying to us about so much stuff and fear mongering about so much shit. It's coming at all angles that it's almost impossible to be able to tell like what the reality is and not. And that's why people need to look at my videos and actually in government hire me, give me a call. I've been giving my email address and stuff like that because yeah, like they think we're idiots. They honestly do. And they think that we deserve this, honestly. And there are people that actually, and I hate to say this, but there are people that get great satisfaction in watching these, like the news and stuff like that, and watching their stream surveillance of people like being unaware and cattle for the slaughter. So, and they enjoy the MAID stats increasing. They enjoy addictions going up. They enjoy suicides going up. They enjoy watching children be controlled in sections and go off like with their friggin' masks on and on these like little like lines and they like, there are unfortunately not a lot, but they're the ones that are in charge right now that actually get immense satisfaction and actually cause chaos in order to establish this Hegelian dialect and stuff like that and further exploit us. And so like not everyone is like us, like what like not like you watching this video or like me. Like there are some evil people in the world, and they are not going to be people who are going to just stop. You know what I mean? Like that's why we need to get on this.
And this is from last year,
right?
This video.
And these are the last mountains before the Taurus field, the cosmic egg. Okay, so beyond this, there is no land. It's the cosmic egg blocking us out from the void outside, right? So let's focus on the center, on where we are and what that might look like. Okay, there's some really important bits. Okay. Around each of these 4 worlds is also in Taurus fields. So remember, this is in Taurus fields. Each of these worlds also has its own Taurus field cocooning it. So there's a Taurus field around this outer world. There's a Taurus field around this one. There's a Taurus field around that one. And there's a Taurus field at the center. Okay? And what that would look like, essentially, is something like this. Okay? From our perspective, from where we are. Right? Almost like those Russian dolls. Right? So there's one at the center, a Taurus field like that. There's one on the outside, on the outer worlds, a bigger one. Then there's a bigger one on the outside. Right? Now, I noticed something very interesting about this. These toroidal fields, right, are probably oblate spheroids in shape. So when mainstream science and NASA says the Earth is an oblate spheroid, this is what they're telling us. They're kind of telling us a half-truth, right? Which is why they can blatantly lie with a straight face, because they know they're usurping the truth. And when it comes out, they'll just probably say, well, you're too stupid to understand what we're saying, but we're telling you the truth. So this is an oblate spheroid. Underneath where we are, this is where the 4 layers would be: the crust, the mantle, inner core, and outer core, just like mainstream science says, right? Inner Earth. And above us, we've got the 3 atmospheres within our toroidal field. We've got the troposphere, the stratosphere, right? The mesosphere, and the thermosphere inside our torus field. This top bit is what
You're forgetting the magnetosphere.
mainstream.
And I think they're calling one of the layers the magnetic sphere, just to, like, again, in plain sight, let us know that there are magnetic fields that are containing us within this environment, these toroidal fields that people like Ken Wheeler show, like visual representations on their videos. That is what I believe to be what makes up this earth plane.
Science calls
It's just hard to explain. So again, like looking back in this now, like this is from like last year, and I've definitely done a lot more research on things like electricity and magnetism and light and all that stuff. And
the Van Allen belt.
Anyway.
This is the Van Allen belt, this toroidal field. Right? They tell us there's a field of energy that they
That
cannot go past called the Van Allen belt. This is it.
Mhm.
By the way, they also
It's yeah. So like you're saying, it's a radiation belt. Okay, but it's caused by what's radiation caused by this by the sun and or magnetism. And there are a lot of people that make this incorrect association with Ida and Pingala, or with electricity and magnetism, and with the sun and the moon, a correlating magnetism with the moon, and so that would ultimately make the sun be the one that that is giving off the electrical charge, or whatever you want to call it. And like I've said in people like Walter Russell, it's electricity that's negative, and it's negative in its charge. It's gravitational, right? For the like the desire of matter to integrate into form. And then magnetism being like so radiating energy being magnetism, and the desire for magnetism to disintegrate into the disappearance of form. It's right into the terminology. This being a universe of light in motion, but based off of that. And so the moon would be correlated with electricity, and the sun with magnetism. And so I also break down on my chart, and it's also not a coincidence that like out of the chakras, the 4th chakra, the heart chakra, is associated with Libra and Taurus, toroidal fields and stuff like that, like and the feminine energy, electricity, with its sign and the negative, and the element copper, the and what I like to call a moon, Venus, because it has phases, just like what we call the moon. Venus also has phases, and so check that out. And then it being at the center too, so like the flat plane of inertia that we're experiencing, we're also experiencing physically, because there's also body parts also that are associated with the chakras and the luminaries and the zodiac signs, starting from the root and going up towards the crown. So at the root being, like the feet, and then going through with like the calves and the thighs, and then the central nervous system also connected with Capricorn, and then going up again to the organs and then heart, and then throat, and then third eye, pineal gland. And so even with the pineal gland, pituitary gland, and thalamus, that's also like the trinity there of electricity, dielectricity, and what we call the cerebral spinal fluid, what do you want to call it, or Christ oil, but what I call the ether, or the essence, or what people call so many other names. Anyways, I'll just leave it at that for now. Oh no, I won't actually. And so with the outer ring or toroidal field, I do believe that is what Saturn is influencing, that toroidal field specifically, because even though luminaries have their own toroidal fields, like he's saying, especially the suns, and it just so happens that when you break down this as well, Saturn is correlated with Capricorn and Aquarius, the root chakra, the first chakra, the base chakra, the 0 degree chakra, the color red, and associated with Saturn day, obviously, as well. And it being Capricorn being the negative female electrical sign or representation in here, and Aquarius being like the positive masculine in that. And so like the outer field, I believe to be what is Saturn.
the furthest
You're
one.
not going to get this information freaking anywhere else, right? And so even Old World Florida, he's a freaking genius. Check out his channel. Please check out his channel. It is life-changing. And yeah, but like even he and I have had differences in opinion based on these charts and how I map this out, because I also use the original planets and stuff like that. And again, like a lot of people don't factor in everything together, and but it should be, because we are anyway, because perception is reality. I know I keep on cutting you off on this. I'm so sorry. It's just like I like, this guy's a genius and brilliant. I just like to add on and throw in like my own input based on my own knowledge and experience as well.
Tell us that there are 5 Van Allen belts in the universe. So that's the 4 of the worlds, the 5th one being the outermost one. They also tell us that our universe is covered with cosmic background microwave radiation, which is basically a torus field. So they're telling us that the whole universe is inside a torus field.
Yep.
Cosmic background radiation, electromagnetism.
Different layers.
So again, they're telling us the truths, but in a twisted way so that we don't figure out exactly what it is. Okay? So that is what it would look like from our perspective. Right. I also hypothesize that these toroidal fields have got different motions that they're moving at. Okay? So science tells us that the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour on its axis. Yeah? And then it's spinning at 67,000 miles an hour around the sun. And then it's spinning at 490,000 miles an hour in the universe. Again, there is some truth in that. It's not a complete lie. So the terra firma we're standing on is obviously not spinning, but the toroidal fields around us are spinning. Okay? So I've depicted it here on this cross section. Okay? So here, we've got the pyramid Bhumandala. We've got the toroidal fields going around each of the lands, over and underneath. Right? 1 at the center, 2 where we are, 3 on the outside worlds, and the 4th one on the furthest out worlds. Okay? Our toroidal field is probably moving at 1,000 miles an hour, that vortex. And this toroidal field, which is being powered, well, all of them are being powered by that cosmic vortex that we talked about in the beginning. This is the engine room that's powering the energy of all these toroidal fields, right? Because that runs straight through the middle. Okay? So that's moving at 1,000 miles an hour on its axis, which is that axis, just like mainstream science tells us. The next toroidal field is moving at 67,000 miles an hour around our sun, which I'll explain why in a minute. And the outer one is moving in our universe at 490,000 miles an hour, the last one.
I need more proof on that.
So if these figures are true, and my syncretism is true, or it's close, then this is what I think that means. Okay? Right. The next bit is I want to focus on where did I put it? Our torus field and our Earth, where we are. Okay? So that's a cross section of it, the one that I was showing you earlier on. So that is where we would be, the terra firma, the Earth, where we're standing here. This would be the lands at the center, Eden, with its torus field, which mainstream science tells us quite clearly it's an electromagnetic field. At the center, at the North Pole, there's an electromagnetic field, which is a torus field, powered by the sun, so they say. So they're telling us there's a torus field at the center, okay? And this is the Van Allen belt that they tell us about, right? And then we've got the 4 atmospheres: troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, like I said earlier on. Underneath us is Earth, right? This is the ground. The crust, the mantle, inner core, outer core.
Okay, so the more I'm like looking at this, like the more I'm like, there's a lot of things that I'm finding holes in it.
Venus and Jupiter, which are moons.
No.
You would have the Bhumandala over there, different toroidal fields, Mercury, androgynous at the center, Sun.
Okay, so I do believe that the sun and the moon are considered to be wandering stars as well. Like there's 7 original planets. I do believe that the other luminaries don't impact this cosmos as much as the sun and moon. I do believe that like they're positively and negatively charged, radiating versus gravitational, hot plasma versus cold plasma, sonoluminescence being involved, heavily being involved, and anyway, yin and yang, electricity and magnetism, centripetal versus centrifugal. A unified force experiencing itself dualistically in this binary system. And I do believe that, like, I'm subscribing to the toroidal fields. I'm subscribing to the sun and the moon heavily influencing the electricity and the magnetic charges within this cosmos, which transfers light. And by the way, light is considered to be radiation. It's void of an electrical charge, which to me means it's a friggin' it's magnetized. It's magnetism. Visual representations of magnetism, and Ken Wheeler has also showed visual representations of magnetism in the toroidal fields. And I've said that when you look down, it absolutely looks like these, like the flower of life, or the lotus. You know, especially like the more petals you get, the more the more magnetized the stronger the magnetic force. And so when you vibrate at a higher level and you access your higher levels of consciousness, then this is where you are creating a stronger magnetic field with more lotus petals. I hope that makes sense. And yeah, so I'll get into something from Ken Wheeler just so you can see like a visual representation. I may have showed this before as well. Yeah.
Okay, I promise to show you something now that I've never talked about before, and that will be in the 4th edition of my free book, Not Selling Anything, Uncovering the Missing Secrets of Magnetism. Okay, right now we're looking at a magnet underneath the ferrocell, invented by my buddy, Tim. And here you can see, moving clockwise, brighter lines. These are just fed by standard hardware LEDs. Okay, now underneath that, moving in a seemingly opposite direction or counterclockwise, you will see dimmer lines. The dimmer lines is the opposite face of the magnet that is furthest away from the surface of the ferrocell. The ferrocell are two perfectly optically flat pieces of glass, in between which is a special solution that is less than 1 micron thin. If you're actually to have this ferrocell in your possession, you would actually see holographic depth far deeper than any hologram, even the best art hologram that the world has ever seen. And this is less than 1 micron thin. But that's not what I'm talking about here. Let's first take a look at what we're looking at, then understand what we're looking at. Because descriptions are one thing, explanations are another. So here you see it. Clockwise brighter lines and seemingly counterclockwise dimmer lines. So what do the dimmer lines represent? Now we hold a position that is irrefutable, that there is a double vortex in either pole of a magnet. We think that one side is moving clockwise and the other side is moving counterclockwise, but that's a spatial vector. In reality, the truth is, and this is something I've already mentioned, I'll get to the main point here in a second. The truth is that both are moving in exactly the same direction. If you place your hands like this and move them opposite each other in a way, you'll say, well, they're moving inverse to each other. But if you look at each hand, you'll see that this one's moving counterclockwise, and on the other side, this one's moving counterclockwise. If you move them clockwise, they're also moving inversely. But if you look at each one, this hand's moving clockwise and the other hand's moving clockwise. So the vector of inverse movement is only a spatial vector. Both are in reality moving in the exact same direction. These curvilinear circles, okay, we need to understand some first. And yes, I don't care if it sounds hubristic or boastful, but I'm the first person on earth to figure out what magnetism is, how magnetism works, and about Occam's razor. The most simplest explanations must be the true ones. There is nothing possibly conceivable that is more simplex than this. Explaining it, however, is not simple. The explanation is not simple. Really, the main reason it's not simple is because human comprehension of geometers and the notion of geometry and metageometry, space and counter space, the conjugate principles of force and motion, inertia and acceleration are not anything we learned in college, high school, or anywhere else. Don't learn in those years. You'll not read about this stuff anywhere. Okay, now let's come to a comprehension, and I'll explain something to you and you'll understand something. And I'm going to show you something for the first time, so bear with me, okay? Something that you'll love, something that's wonderful. Or that movie 2000, it's going to happen, and the old guy says something wonderful. So I'll amaze you here in a second, okay? Let's explain this first. Okay, we know that the brighter lines is the closest face of the magnet. The dimmer lines that are moving seemingly the opposite direction are actually moving the exact same direction. And these are all curvilinear vectors. But the light is shooting in from here. So obviously we have bright lines and we have voids. Bright lines, voids. Either side. We can look at this side or the other side. Okay, what is this? It's not additive and destructive interference like we're talking about in the double slit experiment of the laser, but the principle is still the same. It's a conjugate principle that there's a double vortex on either side of any magnet. And a magnet, of course, has spatial vectors. Polarity is only the definition of the inverse of counter space. So why are there black voids here and then bright lines? Black voids and lines, same thing for either side. Think about it a second. It's the same principle that we think of as destructive and constructive interference. Hold on, I'm going to show you something neat in a second. You have to bear with me. You have to build up to understanding the comprehension of this geometry that defines a reciprocating processional hyperboloid that extrapolates itself out as the hypertrochoidal pattern that we see here. This pattern that you see, a spirograph pattern or a hypertrochoid pattern. So why voids, bright line, voids, bright lines? Why? The light is absent here because the vector that is moving where there is no light on either side of this magnet is where the centripetal convergent vortex is coming in. The light is disappearing. You see this black spot right here in the center, this huge black spot that will appear on any magnet, whether it's a spherical magnet, a conical magnet, a donut magnet, a flat magnet, a square magnet, a circular magnet. It all looks the same underneath the ferrocell because magnetism is magnetism is magnetism is magnetism, and a magnet is a magnet is a magnet. It has no differentiation as far as the geometry of the magnet, whether it's spherical, conical, cubical, doesn't matter. Because magnetism and inertia, force and motion, inertia and acceleration, are transcendent to the spatial geometry that that magnet is compressed into and formed as. Well, let me show you something else, okay? This black spot right here is where the light has disappeared. It cannot penetrate this spot, nor can it exist here, because this is the point of centripetal convergence, where light is literally sucking down like a drain down a hole, okay? And places where you do see bright lines, either on this side or the dimmer lines on the other side, that is where the centrifugal divergence, the true magnetism, exists. Where magnetism, literally, the loss of inertia, as defined by force and motion, is being blown out. Centrifugal divergence is where the white lines exist. Centripetal convergence are where the black spots exist. That's not the point that I was building to. Let me show you something. Now I have a magnet underneath here, and I have the ferrocell on top of it. So what happens if you think I were to put a magnet on top of this? What would change? If I put it, let's assume that this is the South Pole. Let's assume that I put another magnet, South Pole to South Pole. Okay, magnetic repulsion in the crudest sense, which does not really define what's going on. It's a dielectric convergence or dielectric voidance or a dielectric countervoidance. So what happens if you think I put South Pole against South Pole? Would the black spot get bigger because I'm increasing force and motion? It certainly will. You won't be able to see the vantage point, but I'll show it to you, okay? Let me do it off at an angle here so you can see it properly. Hold on, let me get a better grip on the old magnet. Otherwise, I don't want to slip out of my hands because it's powerful, okay? So bring it closer. You'd actually see, and you can't see because I don't have the angle at that spot right now. As I get closer, you can see what's going on here. There's a black spot building right in the center there. Now, if I bring these two magnets together, it will be exactly the same as far as the field and the pressure mediation is concerned. If I were looking, think about this now. Pause your brain and concentrate your damn brain a second. When I place these two magnets together in what you would crudely call magnetic attraction is increasing inertia and acceleration. So what I'll be looking at here, the ferrocell will be the dead center of a magnet, because when you bring two magnets together and they snap together, what I'll be looking at here in the ferrocell is the dead center of a magnet. They will be close enough that they will be one magnet. So what do you think will happen? Will it be the inverse of a black spot?
I would love to see the video with Ken Wheeler on Globebusters. So November, if you can actually maybe send me that, or actually I can look for it. But oh my God, I would definitely watch that.
Like we see here, as the light is disappearing down the point of increasing inertia and acceleration, or will there be a gigantic white disk of light? At the center of every magnet, there is no magnetism. If we're able to go to the center of the Earth, the point or the center of gravity, if you will, gravity does not exist. Gravity is not an autonomous field modality. Of course, gravity exists, that which we call gravity, but gravity is absolutely no different than magnetic attraction. What is specifically dielectric avoidance? The only difference is the attribution. In the case of a magnet, it's coherent. In the case of gravity, it's incoherent. So, at the center of the point of gravity, like the center of the Earth, the center of the sun, there is no gravity. So at the center of the strong field, there is not that field. At the center of every magnet, there is zero magnetism. You can see that underneath the ferrocell. You can see that underneath magnetic viewing film. You could even see it if you were to bring two magnets together with the Gauss meter at the center. So, we know what's going to be at the center. Is it going to be a black spot or a gigantic disk of light? What do you think the answer is? We're creating one magnet out of two. You'll notice as I get it closer, hard to keep it from snapping together. I don't want to break the glass. That at first, the black hole gets a little larger. Notice the flux line is diverging. You see that? Now wait, what happens when I bring it together? Look at what's forming before I bring it together. You see that that ring of light? As I get closer, let me get it so you can get a better view. As I get closer, the black turns into a ring of light. See if I can zoom in so you can see it. Here we go. Hold on a second. There we go. A ring of light. What you're seeing is the center of the magnet.
A ring of light.
Two magnets are now effectively one, even though they're separated by a couple of thin pieces of precision glass. The center where no magnetism exists, there's a halo of light. Oh, that almost sounds spiritual. Yeah, did you go figure that one, huh? So now let's take a look at something else.
Like the opposite.
Let me move the magnets away so I don't destroy my iPad. Let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, let's turn on the iPad. And let's take a look at what it is we think we're seeing with the simplex demonstration. Okay. There we go. Let's hit play. Well, there are no straight lines in the universe, so we're talking about a point line divergence. Let's reset that. Find the center. Curvilinear. This is the hypertrochoid. Reciprocating perception.
So if he was to look at that in a 3 or 4 dimensional way, he would see if there are lines, and that this even the toroidal fields, like you've got that center line, that plane of inertia that is not curved.
Sessional hyperboloid. It's as simple as that. This is the pattern of the hypertrochoid.
So it looks like a circle.
That is the hypertrochoid pattern, what you would call the spirograph pattern.
Yeah.
This is a toroid.
That's what I believe to be like a top-down view. If you were looking at this electrical magnetic reality, that's what it would look like.
The center, the same pattern you see underneath the magnet, and the center of that hypertrochoid. The hypertrochoid is only the flat two-dimensional image of the torus or the donut. In the inverse image, the donut represents magnetism, okay? That is magnetism.
Yep.
So, what
we're calling the magnetic
sits
sphere, the
as the conjugate inversed image to the donut is the hyperboloid that reciprocates. That's the point, the locus of the loss of inertia. 0 point energy, the ether, everything in the universe is electrical. But electrical is a field modality phenomenon. There is something that precedes the electrical. Because electricity is phi times psi equals Q in Planck of electrification. Phi and psi, dielectricity times magnetism equals Q in Planck of electrification. So electricity doesn't come first. I'm just saying that the universe is electrical. Hold on a
And
second.
I don't agree with that.
Let me get in focus here.
I don't agree with it.
It's hard to focus on this dim stuff. So you are seeing the torus, these bright lines that are going clockwise is the side faces to you, closest to you. The darker lines moving in seemingly the opposite direction are in fact moving in the exact same direction. But the spatial vector of the polarity that defines a magnet is the inverse of counter space, inverse of inertia, inverse of 0-point energy. The conjugate principle of the universe is magnetism and dielectricity, the reciprocating precessional hyperboloid. The dark lines represent centripetal convergence. The white lines represent centrifugal divergence. So what you're seeing
Create the spirals.
in the white lines is true magnetism. The light is actually hitting it and bending it along the lines of centrifugal divergence. The centripetal convergence, where light is literally going like water down a drain, is where you see these black voids in between the white lines. Okay? As you can see, these lines that are moving seemingly clockwise are closest to you. They're brighter. The darker lines is the other side of the magnet. Well, they seem to be moving counterclockwise. No, they're moving in the exact same direction, only inverse to your spatial perspective. Space has no attributes. Space is nothing. Space is the air inside this donut. The cream filling inside the
Also, I
donut
don't
of
agree.
magnetic divergence is literally the farts, the after effect.
It's not empty space. I lost my friggin' conversation from yesterday with ChatGPT. And so I did want to read some things before I share a little bit more of the questions that I was asking. So for screenshots. Light consists of particles called photons, which have zero rest mass and zero electrical charge. That sounds a lot like a proton as well, which is very interesting. Photons have energy and momentum, and they can be described using quantum mechanics. Perceived and measured, visible light specifically is electromagnetic radiation with wavelengths between 400 and 700 nanometers. They're talking about visible light, corresponding to frequencies of 750 to 420 terahertz. The photometry units such as luminous efficacy take into account the way light appears to the human eye rather than just its raw intensity. Physical effects. Light exerts physical pressure on objects in its path, a phenomenon that can be explained by Maxwell's equations and the particle nature of light, photons striking and transferring their momentum. This is just I thought that was very interesting. So I said, what is a proton? A proton is a subatomic particle found in the nucleus of an atom. Here are some key characteristics. Charge. Protons have a positive electrical charge of +1 elementary charge. And it talks about the mass stability. What it doesn't say here, which I don't like about the proton, so is helium a proton? Let's see what they say. Okay, so I have to ask it very specifically. So it's atomic number 2. So when you, what happens when you remove the electron from helium? Oh. I wish I had my conversation from yesterday. I'll look at it again and refer to it. Yeah, so helium ion. So it's ionized helium. Because there's a proton and an electron in helium. It's the lightest of the elements on the periodic table, the gas. And when you remove the electrical charge, and this happens, the higher up you go within the atoms, and that's what creates the magnetic fields, I believe. And the helium ion has 2 protons and 1 electron. This process can occur through ionization when energy is supplied to helium atom to remove the electron. When both electrons are removed from a neutral helium atom, it becomes a doubly charged helium ion, which is essentially the helium nucleus. This is also known as an alpha particle. Removing electrons from helium results in the formation of positively charged ions. The He ion is created by removing one electron, and the He2 ion or alpha particle is created by removing both electrons. Anyway, so I'm going to go back up. What is magnetism? I already went into this yesterday, so I'm just going to blow through it. See if there's anything that I agree with wholeheartedly, because some of this stuff, again, I don't agree with. I think that our theories on magnetism right now are incorrect, or at least need to be further explored. And we can do that by looking at light, by looking at removing electrons or protons from various elements and seeing how they interact within their different states as well, at varying temperatures and pressures and densities. And anyway, describes the magnetic fluid. Anyway, ferromagnetic, paramagnetic, diamagnetic. I was explaining that yesterday. Let's see here. What is light? Light is a form of electromagnetic radiation that is visible to the human eye. See, and this, I don't agree with even this explanation of that, so I further elaborated. So now they're talking about visible light, and even within the human eyes and how we perceive this this Earth plane, it's incorrect how it's being explained in mainstream education systems as well, right? With our lens, and we really have to look at the concave versus convex lens and how they create convergent versus divergent light, and yeah, and it's profoundly impacts the way that we would look at science as well. Nature of light, wave particle duality. Light exhibits both wave-like and particle-like properties. This dual nature is described by quantum mechanics. As a wave, it is characterized by its wavelength and frequency. As a particle, it is composed of photons, which are discrete packets of energy. Electromagnetic spectrum. Light is part of the electromagnetic spectrum, which includes other types of radiation, such as radio waves, microwaves, infrared, ultraviolet, X-rays, and gamma rays. And so light is part of the electrical magnetic spectrum, as I say. And I do believe that within these light spectrums, there are varying degrees of periods where I believe that light is more at equilibrium, like the electrical and magnetic interactions within the visible light spectrum. And I think that the further you go beyond that, either towards the radio waves versus the gamma rays, there's going to be more of one force superseding the other or overtaking the other's strength, right? And so one being more magnetic, and then one being more leaning more towards the more electrically charged light spectrum that interact with us differently. And anyway, speed of light. In a vacuum, light travels at a constant speed of this. Yeah. Speed is denoted by the symbol c. Properties of light, wavelength and frequency. The wavelength is the distance between successive peaks of a wave, and the frequency is the number of wave cycles that pass a given point per second. Intensity. The intensity of light is the power per unit area, typically measured in watts per square meter. I do believe that even with lasers and the frequencies and the strength and the wavelengths, whatever you want to call it, I do believe like this light, like these small particles that make up these light waves or these lasers, I do believe that this is like interacting with like more with magnetism within the ether. Okay, so different types of interaction with matter. Reflection, refraction, diffraction, which anyway, interference, absorption. Sources of light, not really that interesting. Is light electrically charged? That's a question I asked. No, light is not electrically charged. Light is a form of electromagnetic radiation, and it consists of photons, which are elementary particles. Photons are neutral and do not carry any electrical charge. Here are some additional points to clarify this. electromagnetic waves. Light is composed of oscillating electric and magnetic fields that propagate through space or the ether. These fields are perpendicular to each other and in the direction of propagation, but they do not carry an electrical charge. Photons. The quantum mechanical description of light involves photons. Photons are the quanta of the electromagnetic field and are neutral particles with no mass and no charge. They interact with charged particles such as electrons, but they themselves do not have a charge. And again, I'm not subscribing necessarily to that. All forms of electromagnetic radiation, including visible light, radio waves, microwaves, infrared, ultraviolet, X-rays, and gamma rays, are composed of photons. None of these forms of radiation are electrically charged. None of them are. I don't know. Interaction with matter. While light can interact with charged particles, causing electrons to oscillate or be ejected in the photoelectrical effect, this interaction is due to the electric and magnetic fields of the light wave, not because the light itself is charged. Is radiation magnetic? I'm just giving you what ChatGPT says. And by the way, ChatGPT also says that the Earth is a globe. And I've had conversations with that I've shown as well. Please take a look at those. And so I'm just going through this with you just to see if anything pops out. Okay, so I had already asked, is radiation magnetic? Radiation itself is not magnetic, but it can produce and be influenced by magnetic fields. Here's a breakdown of the relationship between radiation and magnetism. Consists of oscillating magnetic fields and electromagnetic waves. No. Yeah, so I asked about the full light spectrum. However, it can interact with and produce magnetic fields through its interaction with matter and charged particles. I've given visuals too about the like the light spectrum and the different visible and non-visible light spectrums. Yeah, removing both electrons. Anyway, I talked about take a look at yesterday's video to get further information on magnetism. I might share another video with Ken Wheeler and Globusters. I haven't been able to see it at all. And in November, I was just saying that he doesn't think the link works. Yeah, I wasn't even able to find the video, so I don't know if it's even removed. But if it's on Rockfin, I would definitely take a look at that. But anyways, today I wanted to definitely throw out the predictions that I had made regarding Kamala Harris and Biden. And so I do want to present the letter. And then I also wanted to share couple of my haters. Because on my social media, I get epic trolls. And yeah. So this is the Joseph R. Biden Jr. July 21st, 2024 letter. And yeah, I said I have multiple videos where I made this prediction where I said Biden would step down on or around the 20th of July, 2024. If I had looked at the full moon period and not been sloppy, I probably would have said around that day. But anyway, and that certain groups like to announce big events around new moon and full moon periods. Today's a full moon. Anyway. And so I said the people I predict may be on the ticket are M. Obama. I didn't say Michelle or Michael. I just said M. Obama, Hillary, and yes, even Oprah is a possible wild card. And then I said I'm on Rumble. And so I have this friggin' troll that was like, a lot of people made that prediction. We all just don't think we are the only genius. And so I just corrected his misspelling of the word genius, right? So this is what you like things to do with trolls as well. And the other one must have been deleted. But someone else had said everyone knew that and made that prediction. And I was like, oh yeah, can you show the receipts? Let me see the video where you have it on the record anywhere on your social media. I want to see videos and timestamps of when you made that prediction, because like people, and hindsight 2020, right? People always friggin' say that they, oh yeah, like I knew. Oh yeah. Okay, show it, because I'm showing you a video from January 1st, over 6 months ago, where I was literally saying that, and I said on or around the that date, and how and why and stuff like that. And so again, just anyway, let people friggin' make their own interpretations of reality. It is what it is. Moving on, but anyways, my fellow Americans. So yeah, this is where he was talking about not running for another term, and I do believe there's going to be more to follow. He didn't support Kamala Harris in this. I think that was intentional. Even Nancy Pelosi at first did not mention her, Kamala Harris, in her message to everyone regarding Joe Biden, that letter. But again, I think she's going to obviously at some point this week show her full support. They're going to try to throw out anything to try to get her possibly more popularity. I don't know. But anyways, I think that they want Trump in as well. I think that it's left and right, part of the same bird. And nothing's being dictated by people in cabinet, Senate, or the president. Anyways, unfortunately, it's all lobbyists and propagandists, currentists that don't seem to give a shit that they're selling our humanity. Because what impacts America absolutely does impact, unfortunately, the rest of the world by virtue of the fact that they are a superpower and they have connections all over the world and assets. And they still control the seas and a significant portion of the airspace, again, within this contained environment. And, the biggest military in NATO. Anyways, it is what it is. On that note, I will leave it at that. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.